checking in from the mountains of Colorado. And this is a really important video for me, as much as anyone out there, is I'm always running from stillness, and I don't even know it. And I go through a lot of cycles in my life, and this current cycle, this current trajectory I'm on, is a lot of working on just creating content so much for my main YouTube channel, building a business, right? Physical training. I have a new relationship in my life, and I feel like I'm flourishing. And yet, almost every day, like lately, I've been waking up and life hasn't felt like enough. It's just, it's back to the grind, And I love what I do. And it's crazy, even if you love what you do, you have a great relationship, a great family. If you're not connected to stillness, life is going to continuously feel like it's not enough. And, all the wise sages, the yogis, they've always said this, It's like, yeah, we can, flourish in our earthly life, but if we're not connected to God and have a relationship to stillness, we're always just running from something. We're running to somewhere else. And honestly, it's really difficult in the modern world because, we have phones, we have social media, we have Netflix, we have books to read, we have all of these things. And honestly, if I reflect on my life, just on a daily basis, like I wake up and I'm thinking about work, and then I'm working, right? And I'm writing, and then, I'm listening to something, and then I'm meeting with a friend, and then I'm editing a video, and then night comes around and cooking dinner and all these different things, like all these obligations, all these goals. I'm an ambitious one. So I'm always moving forward. And when I'm not moving forward, I tend to be seeking stimulation of some kind, whether it's like a powerful mystical experience or a good, time with a friend. And that's all fine. There's many parts of life that are important. And I'm realizing out here is, the physical training, it's important, right? The work and purpose, it's so important. Relationships are so important. But there needs to be time for stillness, because the relationship to stillness is just as important. And the problem is, even at night, I sit down to meditate. And often I'm praying for something, right? I'm seeking something out of it. Everywhere. And if we continue on that train, you get imbalanced. I get frustrated, right? I start to feel a little bit empty. I start to seek pleasure, all these things. When in reality, I need to make it a practice to just come out into nature and breathe very slowly, very deeply, not looking for anything. I was just doing an 8x4 by 8x4. Meaning you're inhaling for 8 seconds, holding for 4, exhaling for 8 seconds, holding for 4. And just focusing on that, even for just 15 minutes. And you feel the stillness start to enter your whole body and mind. And it's interesting is that's where the real spiritual practice begins. It begins from that meditative state. From that place, I start feeling into maybe my more energetic body. And I think it's so important. And honestly, guys, yoga, I'm just realizing I have the soul of a yogi. And yoga is a full life discipline. Meaning my work is yoga. It's karma yoga, right? Working heroically, aspiring, bringing, living in your dharma, right? There's also the relationships, that's yoga. There's also the wisdom and the knowledge, that's yoga. But if we're not doing the yoga in stillness too, we're missing our anchor point. And I'm realizing that as a leader and for leaders out there, your connection to stillness is your source of transcendence. This is where God speaks through you, right? And I think that if you can prioritize, for me, if I can prioritize stillness this one time a week, right? Coming out into nature after finishing, work and all the joy, even if it's just for a couple hours, and just breathing into stillness, right? And getting actually still. It's not a prayer. It's not looking for something. It's not a deep ceremony. It's literally just, I'm content with stillness. You find the essence of your being, right? And a lot of this channel, my personal channel, my philosophy is that we're here to nuzzle into the deepest parts of our essence and bring it forth. But if we're always in the noise of the world, you lose track of your signal. You lose track of your essence, and it's a constant practice to come back to yourself, right? Through all this self-forgetting out here, to come back to yourself and go forward from there. And like, nuzzling into your essence and bringing it forth. It's very interesting is I've been learning to work hard for the first time in my life. I thought I like worked hard before and I had discipline and all these things. And like every night lately, I've been working for 4 or 5 hours straight, like in one go. And that's after a whole morning work session. And in that, I'm just like finding it's like what willpower actually is. It's like, yes, I enjoy doing this. Actually, I love what I do. Hence, I work harder at it than anything in my entire life before. And learning what like hard work is, it's so interesting because when I sit down to meditate, it's like if you can just get through the 10 minutes of resistance of like the mind going to different places, wanting pleasure, wanting stimulation, and you just treat it as a practice. It's like, it takes some willpower, you know, it's work, right? And there's play, there's joy, but it's work. And if you treat it as like, hey, I'm just going to do a little bit of work right now, you actually get to stillness where there is deep contentment, where there actually is fulfillment. And the interesting thing is meditation in so many ways is practicing eternity, right? It's practicing death. Like, you know, there's all these like cliche quotes, you know, oh, we're out here trying to learn how to live, right? And it's like, we're also learning how to die. And like, what is beyond? And the beyond is eternal stillness, right? In a sense, it's like building a relationship with eternity. And I kind of come from the Hermetic philosophy, and the Hermetic philosophy says that we have a double. We have a superior self that we barely know. Like all of our ego and our spirituality and all of this physical life is one thing. But there is this immortal soul that is dreaming into this existence, that has consumed, you know, thousands of other lifetimes. And the more that we can breathe into stillness, you actually just naturally start to access him, who's looking at this life, you know, all like the full spectrum of grief, of joy, of love, of success and failure, and is just like dreaming into all of it, is consuming all of it. And I think of it as transcendence. It's like this source, this superior self, this superior transcendence. And this is what I mean, that it's important for leaders to be connected to that, because that voice, that presence, it's eternal, right? And it brings the eternal wisdom and the eternal truth, and it's the source of your dharma. It's the source of, you know, your highest expression and destiny in this life. And so often we're in the world, we're stimulated, you know, we're seeking knowledge and all this stuff. And it's like, we need to return to a Sabbath of sorts. This is why in the Judaic tradition, like the Sabbath is so sacred. And the Sabbath is a day of rest, a day of prayer. And it's hard in the modern world because we're always, you know, we're always in scarcity. We're always needing to build something. If you're a leader, you have a million obligations going on in your life, right? And it's interesting. It says like, you know, paradise or providence or the messianic age will come when the Sabbath is restored, when leaders are connected to transcendence. And I think this is actually the source behind all the dogma of spiritual teaching, of religions, of different worldviews. It's like, no, all of that isn't necessary if the leaders are simply connected to their source, right? For most of my life, it's so funny, like a couple times every year, I return to this place. The cycle brings me back. It's like, bro, just breathe into stillness. And it's like, when is this going to become a practice for me, huh? It's like, yeah, I meditate every night, but it's not quite like this. Right? And I think that's why just having a day of rest or even a couple hours of prayer in the mountains by yourself is so important. I think stillness is a relationship that must grow. The same as our work, like your relationship to your work. Are you cultivating that every day? Your training, are you cultivating that every day in your physical body? Your relationships, cultivating that every day, but also stillness. This is a balancing act. That's fucking hard. And this is why the path of the yogi is full spectrum. It's not just a physical movement practice, right? It's like, how can we live our lives connected to transcendence, to stillness, right? And go out into the world and forget ourselves and come back. And I'm just kind of coming to this point. Maybe it's maturity, maybe it's coming into manhood. Is like most things that are worthwhile, they take willpower. It's a practice, right? Writing every single morning of my life is a practice. Training my body is a practice. Meditating is a practice. And I kind of just have this like thought like, oh, I'll just sit down and meditate and it'll be easy. It's not easy. It's fucking hard. You know? You got resistance to it. I have so much resistance to stillness. This is my work. It's probably your work too, right? We have so much resistance to it we don't even know. But that pleasure seeking at night, that seeking for the phone, the social media, the Netflix, the drugs, the smoking, the sugar, the eating, like all of that shit, you can see it more clearly when you are connected to stillness. And it's amazing when you're in stillness and you don't need anything, you're content with the breath, like the breath of life, the pranic feeling like you're fully embodied in it. You can notice, hey, this thought to make a video came through. Am I going to follow it? Yes. Hey, this like want to, check social media came through. Watch it, right? Oh, this craving for food or sugar or whatever comes through. Watch it, right? Oh, this for me, like I'm such an aspirational one. And I love peak experiences with God, like powerful prayers, powerful creative sessions. I love that shit. Like, powerful conversations. And it's like, hey, just watch that. Like, can we be anchored in stillness and live our lives from there? And I think for me, the practice is going to be having just a Sabbath, even if it's just for 2 hours of coming into stillness, doing some very slow breath work, like 10 seconds in, 10 seconds out, letting go of everything else and just coming into that, because that's where the true prayer is. That's where the true spiritual work is. And that's where the true intuition comes from. When we are connected to our signal, and there's so much noise in the world. There's noise in your work. There's noise in your relationships. There's noise on your phone. All of it's noise. And the yogi, the tantric path is going into noise and bringing the full essence of your being into it. Going into your work and bringing your full essence. So if you're feeling out of balance, my friends, like life's not enough, you're seeking pleasure, you're worried about this, you're anxious about this, things are going on, life's always exploding for me. Like always. This is why it's the practice to come back. And honestly, this is the way for leaders in the modern day is, we can't just retreat to the mountains for deep spiritual practice, right? That isn't what is called for most of us. What is called for most of us is that we are connected to transcendence and we are leading from there. And we are speaking from there. And we are sourcing our mission from there. And when we do that, man, that's how providence will flow through leaders, bring them together and change the world. So stillness, my friends, is pinnacle. Anyways, now hopefully I can follow what I preach, right? Living from my deepest intention. My deepest intention right now is to go full academy mode. Training in my spirituality, my physical body, my work, all of it. Just a deep period of training so that my willpower is primed and my practices are primed for when life becomes more complex. I have a family, I have tribe around me, right? I have lots of business partners, lots of things happening in the world. Like the further you get, my friends, the more you put in the work, the faster life starts exploding. So it's really important if you do have time and you do have some solitude, right? And you do have some freedom. To build your foundation with stillness. Thanks for watching. My name is Christian. If you want to talk to me one-on-one or join the Men's Academy, I host multiple weekly calls in there. Link below for that. Thanks for being here. Peace.